When you're busy threatening the mayor but need someone else to set your DVR for your favorite shows, you hire the part-time henchman. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
Casey.
Oh, it has been a busy week. I hurt my shoulder.
That sucks. Let me guess. Wrestling.
No, actually, weightlifting, and I think... Let me put it this way. I had a special session coming up to the end of my cycle here. That's longer than usual, so I think I overestimated the weights. Went to sleep just fine, woke up the next morning, I slept a little bit weird, and then slowly through the course of the day I was losing range of motion in my neck.
Ow.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah, it's my shoulder leading into my neck. And it's been 3 days, and I've just really felt pretty close to normal today.
Oh, I've had that injury before.
Yeah.
That sucks.
And that doesn't count that on Saturday I drove 2 hours through LA traffic to get to a friend's birthday party at Medieval Times.
Ew.
Medieval times. I do not have that here in my town, and it makes me sad.
I was almost
We
surprised.
have one in Dallas.
Yeah, I was almost surprised I made it there.
I want to move to Dallas, Joanna. I've actually been talking about this. I've discovered that most of my friends, I have more friends in Dallas than San Antonio and Austin combined.
Well, then.
Watch, he moves to
the
Dallas
choice should
suddenly.
be clear.
He moves to Dallas. They all suddenly have an urge to go to San Antonio.
That would
I'm
totally
pretty
suck.
well rooted, though, so no worries there.
The conversation was fun because it turns out 2 buildings over from Medieval Times in Southern California, there's a pirate adventure thing, which is...
Oh, yeah.
You know,
They've got one in Orlando, too.
Yeah, the funny thing is, we're standing there thinking, this is going to be a fun birthday party, but half of us were thinking, maybe it would have been better over there.
They're all about the same level of storyline and cheese.
We figured as much. It's just a case where a bunch of us have been to Medieval Times, but we realized that all of us as a group had never actually been to the Pirates thing, even though it's right there.
That's fair. There's
So-
always next year for someone else's birthday.
Yeah, we started having a conversation about matching up dates sometime in the next calendar year, but that's for a different subject. How are you guys doing?
Oh, it's been a long weekend. Drove 5.5 hours to Lubbock and 5.5 hours back. Saw a new part of Texas I've never seen. Saw mesas and wind turbines and oil rigs. It was pretty interesting.
Did you go out there just to view those things?
Yes, no, exactly. No, I have some friends out there, so I went to hang out with them for... It was kind of just Saturday overnight and then back Sunday.
Okay,
but-
I didn't know if this was a sightseeing tour. When you started talking about mesas and wind turbines and all this stuff, I'm thinking that you're just driving through a car, poking your husband going, look, Texas.
Well, he's from Texas. I'm not. So mesas were like, I've seen them in Wile E. Coyote cartoons, but not in person.
About the same amount of usefulness, really.
Yeah, but they were picturesque. I snapped a picture while on the road, which I shouldn't, but there's no one behind me, no one in front of me kind of thing.
No one behind me, no one in front of me, and I found the perfect place to push my husband off a cliff. This is wonderful.
Yay.
Actually, I drove solo. He had to work all weekend.
Oh, okay. That's
So.
even better. So you're planning without him knowing about it. That's great. Casey, how are you doing?
I did the exact opposite of what Joanna did. I had the wonderful adventure of realizing that the $1,800 I sank into my Mini Cooper 3 months ago does not stop it from breaking down again.
Oh, no.
Wow.
So I'm currently embroidered in the secondary adventure of trying to buy a new car and discovering that there are fewer people that want to help me and more that want to what's the word?
Prey
That when
upon you?
someone wants to predate?
Prey upon you.
Yes.
Someone wants to predate you? What? They want to change your expiration date?
Yeah, I was like, I want to buy this $7,000 Toyota Corolla because I don't really want to spend a whole lot of money. It's like, well, we were not going to approve you for that. But we will approve you for this brand new 2017, 2018 Nissan. It's like, that sounds like you just want to get me into a situation where I can't pay my monthly payments so that you can take the car back from me and sell it back. So you don't want to help me, you want to victimize me. Well,
Basically.
yeah. So, I mean, I dressed down the guy over the phone. He's like, well, it shows initiative if you come in here and talk to us. It's like, no, it doesn't, because the bank's the only people that make this decision. They don't give a crap if I come in there and talk to you over the phone. So now you're lying to me over the phone. You're losing ground with me, son.
I almost feel like
Wait.
you should watch an old, Last Week Tonight that John Oliver did on this very subject.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, that's right. He did do that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Talk about a
probably-
car that was
that's-
resold about 10 times within 4 years, something like that.
Yes, and that probably what stuck into my head as soon as I realized what was happening to me. Um, so realizing I was going to be stuck in the house over the weekend, I barreled through the remaining episodes of My Hero Academia, still loving the series, and I'm writing for my Facebook page, which I'm going to give a shameless plug now, facebook.com/my comic book facts, and I'm writing about Silk. So,
Woohoo.
yay!
Yeah, it's a wonderful fabric. The subject of this week is the second volume of the Batman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover by DC and IDW Comics. That comes up after the news of the week, and we're going to start with Marvel comic news. This is about the characters owned by Disney and their intellectual properties and stories headed for the comic book pages. Marvel has revealed the creative team for Spider-Geddon, possibly.
Yeah, what do you got?
Well, we already knew that Christos Gage was writing it. The artist attached to it is Jorge Molina.
Why does that sound familiar?
If I remember correctly, he's the guy that's been working with Bendis on Invincible Iron Man up until he left.
Ah.
So he has this comic book style that borderlines on manga-esque at times, but it's a very energetic style, I would say. And this series is actually supposed to bridge from Dan Slott's Spider-Man number 800. The story will be a direct follow-up to the events of Spider-Verse, where the assembled Spider characters from multiple realities will gather to fight the Inheritors again, creatures that feed on totems and hybrid beings that connect both the animal and human kingdoms.
Wait, is this Morlun all over again?
Yes, he was the center figure of the Inheritors.
God, I'm actually typing about Morlun right now.
According to Gage, according to editor Nick Lowe in a press release recently, quote, Spider-Geddon straps dynamite to that stage and blows it to smithereens. The most dangerous spider villain ever, Morlun, and his family of inheritors were trapped in the perfect prison at the end of Spider-Verse. But, like in any superhero story, there's always a way out, and you won't believe how these spider eaters get out. But they're out, and they want revenge, unquote.
Well, I don't know where they're going to go with that, because Spider-Verse really was just about as apocalyptic as you're going to get with those heroes. I mean, like, craploads of them died, and they had to make all these sacrifices to put them away. I mean, how do you make a sequel to that just doesn't wipe the whole slate clean?
Well, from what I'm understanding from comments by the writer of the event, Christos Gage, they are going to introduce several new Spider-Men, and they do expect to off a number of them before the event is over.
No, they better not off my favorites. That's what I gotta say about that.
That's the thing about Gage. I mean, he's known to kill characters, but I wouldn't say he does wasted deaths. Usually they have weight and meaning to them. It's not like you're suddenly going to open a refrigerator and find silk in it.
Well, that's good.
Well, yeah. I mean, what I'm writing about right now, funny that it interacts with this particular story, is Silk, and the whole reason why she wasn't available in the Marvel Universe during the entire time Spider-Man was around was because her family locked her away to keep her from these beings. So, I mean, her whole storyline is wrapped up in this, and that makes me a little nervous, because if they do something to Silk, I'm going to be very upset.
Joanna, I heard a question in the middle.
I don't know. I lost my train of thought. It left the station and got derailed halfway.
Okay. Well, Spider-Geddon Zero is supposed to be the beginning of the event, and that's supposed to be on comic book shelf September 26th. Keep in mind, though, that those dates can change depending on production schedules. As a matter of fact, though, Spider-Geddon Zero is one of a number of books Marvel has announced as going to be $4.99. Spider-Geddon Zero, Domino Annual number 1, Star Wars Poe Dameron number 31, and Star Wars Dr. Aphra Annual number 2. They've all gone from being $3.99 and 32 pages apiece to $4.99 and 40 pages apiece.
That's understandable. I mean, they're annuals.
For the most part, yeah. I think Poe Dameron is a finale. I think that's the end of that particular series. The Domino and the Domino and Dr. Aphra, they are annuals. They're typically larger books. At least they were back when I was collecting comic books as a kid. Spider-Geddon Zero, it's not an annual, but it is an event book.
I remember the old annuals were 64 pages.
They were too long. And I'm talking as both a kid and as an adult. Yeah, they tended to put way too much into annuals, and half the times annuals barely counted as continuity stories, so people just kind of stopped buying them.
You're not lying, and that's reason why annuals, by and large, kind of disappeared for the better part of a decade.
Last time I remember the Mattering was like the mid '80s. We're talking like around the era of Uncanny X-Men Annual 10 and 11. Those were the last times I remember people taking them semi-seriously.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that was when big event shit was really happening.
Hmm.
You remember Avengers Annual number 10, the first appearance of Rogue, the reason why Carol Danvers lost her powers, reintroduction of Spider-Woman,
I
all
like how you
kinds of
say
shit happened in
remember that, but that was a period of time I wasn't reading any comic books really. I was lucky enough getting by with Transformers comics until about 1987.
there.
As a matter of fact, though, the first villain has been announced for Ta-Nehisi Coates' version of Captain America.
What do we got?
Really?
Yeah, well, first of all, Ta-Nehisi Coates, he's recently been writing Black Panther up until now. He is a novelist. I can't remember who he's taking over for, but he actually has a pretty good partner with the art. Lionel Francis Yu is working with him for his volume of Captain America.
Oh, I know that person.
Yeah, I believe he did. I believe he did Civil War actually.
Yeah, good
And
stuff. He did good stuff.
yeah, but the thing is though, there's a preview that was released online, 5 pages, and it looks like there's a Hydra fracture. They have what appears to be a not too nice lady from what's called the Power Elite that they're trying to take to one of their facilities. But this woman, who I haven't quite identified yet, she was rescued by an X-Men villain,
Who?
the Black Queen, Selene.
Oh, wow. It's been a while since we heard from her.
Yeah, I know Joanna's probably drawing a blank on that. Selene has been in the Hellfire Club almost since its inception, way back in the early '80s.
Yeah.
She is a near immortal being. She's not a vampire per se, but she eats the souls of other people to sustain herself. She's practically immortal.
Oh, okay. I know who you're talking about now.
Yeah, last time we saw her was during the resurrection event that the X-Men had. Necrosha.
Ah,
Well, that's the last time I remember seeing her anyway. She exploded after eating too many souls, and the combined X-Men and X-Force at the time confronted her.
mm-hmm.
So it appears that the Power Elite is going to be the first major villain, and they already have at least one major character in their roster that is outside of Captain America's usual circle. I like it when things get mixed up like this. It leads to all kinds of new possibilities if done well. If
Yeah,
not,
it's cool.
if not, it's going to fall on its face, and people are just going to start screaming for the Red Skull.
Great.
Oh,
Speaking of the Red Skull, taking this off, slightly off topic.
Yeah, you don't do slight nothing, dude.
The Red Skull that they played in Infinity War, of course, was a different person because Hugh didn't want to do Red Skull again. Anyway, they got this other guy. But the other guy has been wanting to get involved in a Moon Knight project. Apparently, he's a gigantic Moon Knight fan, and he's making himself available for casting.
You know, I'm going to accuse you of hacking me for a minute here, because the next story has to do with Max Bemis. Max Bemis is actually writing the next volume of Moon Knight comics.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And he claims that having bipolar disorder is actually helping him write this particular series. According to the next volume, the Moon Knight, along with his multiple personalities, were absorbed into a science experiment that obviously did not go well, and it calls itself the Collective, and now Moon Knight is trapped with the shared mind of the Collective in addition to his own personas. It's like confronting yourself.
God, how many personas does he have? I remember when Moon Knight first started, he had 3. He had the taxi driver, the mercenary, and the playboy.
For a while, I almost feel like there was another one, like a little girl that was in there, and technically it's still on the fence as to whether or not Khonshu, the Egyptian god he served during certain storylines, might be another voice in his head.
Yeah, it's been alluded to several times, and they've never really said yay or nay on that.
As much as I would like an answer to that, I respect the fact that they haven't given an answer to that. It adds more to the mystique of Moon Knight when you really don't know if he's crazy.
That's true.
Yeah, but I mean, Khonshu has given him abilities in the past. Like, remember when Moon Knight was wearing a lot of the gold artifacts instead of just the white outfit?
Yeah, it seems to be one of those things that a lot of writers prefer to ignore.
Yeah.
I
hated that look.
I don't think he's had powers based on the phases of the moon since his stint in the West Coast Avengers, really. Everybody else seems to have stripped him down to a more human countenance and set of abilities.
Is he still the guardian of the Traveler?
I didn't see that when I read my particular volumes of Moon Knight recently, but that was during the beginning of the period where he was offering himself as a paranormal private investigator and was wearing that white suit as often as he was wearing his costume.
Yeah, he was interpreting protecting travelers as protecting people who were just walking home. So like he would hang out in alleys and jump people that were victimizing people walking home and things like that.
Okay. Well, according to what Bemis told Newsarama recently, they asked him what's going through Mark's collective personalities right now, and his response was, quote, "Let me think about that as I've sort of lost track of which issues are coming out when. I think at the start of this arc, he's just a dad. He's trying to live that dad life, literally, and he's a good dad. I don't know if he's a better dad than me, but he's a good dad and seems to be taking it quite well, in my opinion. I'm very proud of the guy. He's a haunted individual, so being a father can be daunting, and I want to express that through Moon Knight. As somebody who deals with mental health issues and trauma in my past, I think he loves Beatrice, and I should only hope that he continues in the future. What can I say? I know that superhero comics and everything is always in flux. You never know what's going to happen to characters or their kids, and that's scary to me since Beatrice is modeled after my daughter, Lucy, and a lot of the dialogue between him and Beatrice are just lifted from my life, but tweaked in a dramatic fashion. I think he's stoked, though," unquote.
Well, I welcome any Moon Knight. I'm really glad that they've been keeping consistent with the Moon Knight series and even bringing in the classic numbering, and they haven't flaked out and canceled the series and all the many times they've had an opportunity of doing so.
Well, as a matter of fact, this leads to two things. One, last week I was talking about the new Midnight Sun series. It turns out that's not a series. One of Marvel's artists had a pitch concept that he was trying to get out public.
So no green light?
No, not on that one. The other
Sucks.
thing is, though, Moon Knight appears to be one of those underground favorites. What I've gotten from going to panels and talking to creators is that both major companies, because of their continuity, a lot of writers tend to pick which characters they want to work with. And as far as people who don't deal in, like, I guess you could say the extreme superheroic stuff, like the Avengers or the X-Men, tend to put Moon Knight relatively high on the list because a combination. He's like Batman that actually admits he's crazy, and they seem to find that rather refreshing.
Let's see where that goes.
Yeah. Speaking of where it goes, the writer of the Cosmic Ghost Rider miniseries is promising the craziest crap you've ever seen, and I censored that slightly.
Yeah, I've noticed that Marvel has been picking up on the vibe that people are excited about Cosmic Ghost Rider, and he's been getting a lot of hype. So they're smart to actually capitalize on that.
Yeah, the artist on the series is going to be Dylan Burnett. I'm not familiar with him myself. Donny Cates has promised crazy crap, including space sharks, Galactus, and the Juggerduck.
That sounds like they found a new Lobo.
Boy.
They did not. If you recall, the Cosmic Ghost Rider is Frank Castle, who's been charged up by Galactus as a herald before he became a minion of King Thanos. He also, at some point, apparently killed Sidorak. He has a chain that he imbues with hellfire made out of Sidorak's bones, which is terrifying since Sidorak is supposed to be an immortal demon of chaos.
And is also the source of the binds of Sidorak. Is that what it is?
The Crimson Bands of Sidorak.
Thank you. Which is all about binding stuff up. So Sidorak really likes him some bondage.
Right, but if you're wondering why I'm talking about that, one of the things that's been alluded to and seen in covers for the solicits for Cosmic Ghost Rider is the fact that he has to go up against a team of apparently alternative Guardians of the Galaxy, which includes what appears to be Daniel Cage with Captain America's shield, some kind of weird hybrid where it's Groot's body with Rocket Raccoon's head, Cable, the X-Man with a few extra scars, and the Juggerduck, which is the powers of the Juggernaut imbued upon Howard the Duck.
Why?
I don't know.
Why not? I mean, the powers of the Juggernaut could technically go to anybody.
But why Howard the Duck?
I'm sure there's a story behind that somewhere. We just don't know it yet. I don't think they want to drop every story item before the miniseries comes out.
Is that one where they pulled the plot in pieces out of different hats with different scenarios?
I don't know. I didn't think that Juggernaut or Colossus of the Juggernaut would work, but it turned out to be a pretty compelling story before they undid it.
That seems more compatible than Howard the Duck and Juggernaut, just personally.
Who knows? I don't know at what point in the future this is, though. For all I know, a majority of the Marvel characters could be dead, just like prior volumes of Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's fair.
And they've finally expanded on what kind of new abilities Venom is getting as a result of his current adventures.
Oh?
Yeah, he's getting a Berserker form.
Is it that weird red one?
Yeah, it turns out that's going to be not a regular thing per se, but it is, I guess you could say, an arrow in his quiver. The colors of the white will shift to red. His eyes will move to this singular spiral pattern, almost like almost like an insane Al Bhed Cyclops from Final Fantasy X, if anybody remembers that. I know I'm poking out here. In addition, it looks like the texture of the symbiote gets very pockmarked, and he becomes veiny, except the veins aren't black, they're red. It increases his strength rather radically, but unfortunately to pull this out, it appears that the mind of Eddie Brock takes a back seat.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what they were doing with Flash Thompson and to some degree even Gargan back when he had the symbiote.
Yeah, this appears to be just an expanded version of it, maybe more in tune with whatever's going on recently.
I'm still not thrilled about it.
I can't say it's unwarranted, though. The last few iterations of Venom, including like prior Eddie Brock versions, were more about getting the symbiote more in synchronous and in control of its various hosts. This brings it a bit more out.
Yeah, it's like they're basically reversing all the good that they did with the Flash Thompson series. And I've never been a big fan of character development being unwound.
Yeah, but they do need to put a definitive separation between the two.
I understand that.
There is a new Punisher series coming. A new #1 with Matthew Rosenberg as the writer and a man named Simon Kradansky as the artist. I'm not familiar with either one. This apparently is going to be Frank Castle now with a new mission after he ditches the War Machine armor.
Okay.
There is no reason... actually, Kradansky replaced another artist named Riccardo Bercelli as the artist of #1. No reason's been given, but the book still is going to be on schedule for an August 8th release, which actually is pretty damn imminent by comparison. Kradansky was originally solicited to draw the 3rd issue. Bercelli is still on to draw the 2nd. And from what I understand, the Punisher armor has allowed Frank Castle to basically go after bigger targets. You know, he usually did street-level stuff before most of the wackier stories he's gotten involved in. The armor's allowed him to take on some of the Hydra Elite recently. And even after he's gotten rid of the War Machine armor, he's still in the mood to go after people on the level of the Hydra Elite.
Did they say how they were doing that? Him getting rid of the War Machine armor? Because I haven't read that.
The story is still unfolding as far as I know. I know it's on tap to be read by us next week, but the Punisher War Machine story is still ongoing, so they're not going to spoil the end of that quite yet. It's not exactly DC Comics in the New York Times.
Yeah.
Which we will get to in a few minutes here, believe me. I know that some people who follow the news, they're into that.
Yeah, I read it, and I took the bait, and I read the article.
Okay. There's been a replacement on issue 5 of Domino. I don't know if it's temporary or ongoing. Domino's had a regular artist, David Baldion, who's worked on the series since its inception. Well, for August 8th, #5, just like with the Punisher, Baldion's been replaced by a man named Michael Shelfer. No reason's been given to this change either, but Domino #5 is not being delayed. It is also still on schedule for August 8th.
Let's take a look at that artist.
Shelfer previously assisted on Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur #24. He's also been listed as one of Tokyopop's rising stars of manga back in 2005.
Yeah, he did some manga pages for something called Dead Already.
I'm not familiar with that myself. Baldion is still on solicits for the prior issue, July's Domino #4, which should come out pretty soon, and September's Domino #6. So Baldion has not been fired or replaced necessarily. It sounds like he may have needed a little bit of help catching up.
The art style fits Domino for what they've shown so far. He's probably going to have to change his style just a bit to fit with Marvel, though, because he does have kind of an anime flair. but I'm seeing some samples of his stuff because his DeviantArt page is the Blue Phoenix. If you ever want to take a look at it, and there
I,
are a couple pinups of him doing some Marvel style art that actually looks pretty nice.
yeah, I may later.
then-
I mean, I like looking up things as I'm reading them, except, this microphone is way too sensitive. I know people can occasionally hear me clicking my mouse and me typing. Oh, dear God, no.
Yeah, I do all the clicking and typing while you're talking, so they can't hear it.
Joanna, what you got?
Yeah, so the overall style's not going to shift, right?
Not terribly, I would think, and the writer is staying the same. It's still Gail Simone throughout the series, but the fifth
Okay.
issue is relatively important because it looks like by the end of issue 4, going into issue 5, Domino is going to know who has been betraying her and giving away her locations to Topaz and her associate.
God, I hope it's not Outlaw or Diamondback, because damn, I really like them as supporting characters.
Do you want the solicit to number 5?
Yeah, would you
No.
throw it at me?
I've
Okay.
only read the first 3. No spoilers.
Well, it's not really a spoiler because it's a central story for the entire first storyline.
Okay.
Quote, Topaz and Redacted have upended Domino's life completely, dragging her ugly Project Armageddon origins out of the shadows for all to see. Now, having been torn down to her very foundation, Domino is confronted with the deepest cut of all, betrayal. There is a rat in the hen house, unquote.
God damn it. And I
You
know,
know who
it
it
would
is.
be.
Yep.
Yeah, I know who it is. And it breaks my heart because I really like that character.
Well, speaking of characters you like, actually, the last story I have in Marvel comic news, the finale to the recent miniseries, New Mutants Dead Souls, has been pushed back 3 weeks. Marvel emailed, I should say, retailers and said that number 6 has been rescheduled from August 8th to August 29th, so it's about a 3-week delay.
I wonder if they had to get like a fill-in artist or something.
No, the artist is still Adam Gorham. The Matthew Rosenberg is still writing. Unless there's a production problem, I would guess this may have to do with storylines. Because some of the characters of New Mutants Dead Souls have appeared in the first issue of Multiple Man.
Yeah.
So there may have been a little bit of story problems that they may have had to wait through before they got the issue out.
Oh, God. Multiple Man, number 1. I was apprehensive because it's not Peter David. Peter David has pretty much been owning Madrox for the past 15 years.
Yeah, and the writer is not Peter David. I read that issue, and the art wasn't quite my dig, but the sense
mine
of
not
humor is so dry and has such a wink and a nod to it. I thoroughly enjoyed the book.
Exactly my point. So we're on the same eye level on that one. I like the fact that he walked into the kitchen to have Yana go, "Aren't you dead?" He goes, "Yeah, not anymore, I guess."
I actually liked the panel the best when Madrox was talking to Beast and suddenly started fighting himself. And then there's Beast. Look, you're going to have to throw me a lifeline here, and stop hitting yourself. That's not helping.
This is why no one likes you, Madrox, because of shit like this.
We have DC Comic News. We have the other major company that's now owned by AT&T and their characters and storylines that are about to hit comic books. New details have finally been released about DC Universe. That is the online streaming service that, I was going to say Warner Brothers is opening, but now AT&T owns the whole thing. It is an app that will be home to movies, TV, and digital comic books. DC's comic books will appear in some capacity on this website. That's a relatively new announcement. Before, I thought it was just going to be the media properties that they hadn't sold to other television networks. I know that some DC comics are online, but they haven't quite had the same reach as Marvel, which is not just opened its own streaming service. A lot of Marvel comics are also featured on like Comixology and other reading apps. So I think that's a good thing, really. DC can stand to increase its reach to, I don't want to say a younger generation, just a more diverse generation of people.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna put a throw out. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna toss out a yell out, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
A friend of mine is actually involved in the costuming for the new Titans series.
Oh yeah.
Jesse Thaxton,
Okay.
total costuming badass. You ever get a chance to look her up? She's also a cosplayer of incredible skill, and she's directly involved in the development of this new show.
She had time to make me
And
a
I'm
jacket. I've been
excited
looking
for
for
her.
someone to help me out.
Yeah, she's super fucking awesome.
But some of the more famous stories that are hoped to be put on this service anyway would include the first 1938 Action Comics book that introduced Superman to the world, Detective Comics 27 that introduced Batman back in 1939. According to the press release, they also want to add Jeff Johns and Jim Lee's Justice League from 2011, Swamp Thing from 2011 by Scott Snyder, and Harley Quinn 2013 by Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner. There will be rotating selections of comics to cater to new members and passionate fans looking for hard-to-find titles. This is supposed to be available on smartphones and tablets.
I like the Harley Quinn thing.
Okay.
Well, that's because I'm a fan of Connor and her husband.
All right.
So I'll read pretty much anything they put together.
Well, it's funny about reading and putting together because some people are pissed off this week. And it took me a little bit to put together why they were pissed, because on Sunday, for reasons that are still mysterious to me, DC Comics allowed the New York Times to run a story that actually spoiled the ending of this week's Batman number 50, the wedding issue of Batman.
What?
Yeah, and I fell for it, and I clicked it, and I read it because I'm impatient.
I actually didn't. I
Yeah.
read it only because it's major comic book news, and I was reading the story about the spoiler. I was actually kind of surprised that they detailed what the problem was in this story that was more or less about fan outrage within the story. I thought they would have left that to the New York Times and just left it subjective to people to go find it. But then again, hits are hits, I guess.
Yeah, I honestly don't know what their mentality was for that. I don't know what they're hoping to achieve, but I mean, it wasn't to promote the sales of that book. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, Tom King has chimed in that he's a little bit pissed about it, but at the same time, King has also said that Batman number 50 is not the end of his particular storyline between Batman and Catwoman. It's supposed to be an ongoing part of, as he puts it, an 100-issue tale of their love together.
Yeah, and apparently it's supposed to directly filter into the new Catwoman series.
Yeah. I don't know how to feel about it because I want to talk about it more. I don't know how Joanna feels about it, but to talk about this subject, we really have to get into the meat of the spoiler, which is, it's hard for me to know how fair it is. I don't want to ruin sales, but at the same time, this is already a national goddamn story.
By the time this particular podcast goes out, the issue will have already hit the stands.
Okay. Joanna, how do you feel about it? Should we go forward?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. Well, the story is in Batman number 50, Catwoman is going to leave Batman at the altar. She's not going to get married. And the reason behind that is she comes to the determination that a happy Batman will not be as able to fulfill his mission of keeping Gotham safe. Which is a little strange because I always thought that King's argument for this story was that a happy Batman is unusual, so that should be where this story goes.
Right. So his superpower is actually angst, not his money?
Seems like it.
I
And
don't buy it.
some people are already pissed, not necessarily because of the spoiler, but because there's an uncanny similarity between this and the recent Kitty Pryde and Colossus marriage that fell through.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say to those people, chill the F out, because it's highly unlikely that either company really talked to the other about what they were doing, and this just happens to be two writers having the same idea, unfortunately, at approximately the same time. Comic books...
Nobody's allowed to have a happy ending.
Yeah, and for people that don't know...
It's a Joss Whedon way of writing.
And for people that don't know, comic books are generally written about 4 to 6 months before they actually hit stands. So it's not like either one just looked at the other and said, that's a great idea, and suddenly rewrote a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, that's just the way it works.
Yeah. It just happened to be a lot of synergy. However, this disappoints me a little bit. I'm kind of glad that the story is ongoing. However, the two of them getting married, to me, was the story. I thought this would have taken Batman in a really bizarre new place that I was interested to read.
Yeah.
But to find out we're going to deal with the ongoing story doesn't bother me so much as the blue balls of this particular issue, just kind of going, well, we're not done yet.
Man.
Yeah, and, there's still a heavy Batman influence in the new Catwoman series, as evidenced in the way her costume is designed, so...
Yeah, I guess
that story's not over.
I guess the only question left to ask, though, is that since she left him, even though she still apparently loves him, is their partnership going to continue? because it seemed like Catwoman had finally figured out where she sits in his weird family of pseudo sons, and is all that just kind of being suspended for now?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe it'll get suspended. She'll do her own thing, and he'll catch up with her, or
Maybe it'll
he'll
be
do the adult thing and move on.
I was going to say maybe it'll be like a modern nuclear family in a live-in scenario. She's not my mom, but she stays with my dad.
Yeah, one of those.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well,
Hope not.
Grant Morrison is co-writing the Sideways annual in DC alongside co-publisher Dan Didio. Sideways was a character that was supposed to be one of the newer faces that came out of DC's Dark Knight's Metal event, as well as their next wave of characters. Some people are calling him a Spider-Man clone. I can't say for sure because I've only read an issue and I wasn't really interested in following the character after that.
Yeah, me either.
The thing that's getting people's attention is not the fact that Morrison is on Sideways Annual, though. The released cover by Andy Kubert, though, has a character that everyone thought was gone. Literally gone and never returning. It appears to be the New 52 Superman. The one
the short sleeve dude?
yeah, short sleeves and pants. It appears to be the Superman from around the Truth era of the New 52. For those that don't know what that... I'm sorry?
No, continue. I'm baffled by the fact they're bringing him back. Go ahead.
For those that don't know what the Truth era of the New 52 Superman is, there was an era, or there was a part of the New 52 where Superman was massively depowered. He wasn't helpless or he wasn't absolutely human, but he was way below where he usually operates. And personally, I read part of that section of DC. I found his character to be compelling because it's the most human that I remember Superman ever acting, including like his Blue Electric period. But I understand why he didn't resonate with hardcore fans, because this wasn't the near god that people have been used to reading. Either way, though, I was convinced I would never see my favorite version of Superman again, because to resolve a lot of the weird continuity errors in DC as a result of the New 52 going into Rebirth, they wrote this very strange story where the New 52 Superman and the post-Crisis Superman merged into one being with the memories of both.
Yeah, that's what my understanding of it was. I thought that short sleeve Superman was a part of that.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know if this is the original character who should never be seen again. I don't know if this is dimension hopping and we're finding out that there is a Superman out there that was similar to the New 52 Truth Superman. I don't know if this is a time-traveling adventure because, unfortunately, in comic books, all of this is possible.
True.
Gone.
You know, either way, even if it is the return of the New 52 Superman, it's highly unlikely he would be referred to that because there's no way they'd allow him to stand shoulder to shoulder with a guy that they finally resolved to being Superman going forward.
Yeah, either he's just going to show up and disappear, they're going to give him a new name, or shunt him off to another Earth. One of those things is going to happen. Yeah.
One character DC is borrowing, they've decided not to use his name in an upcoming crossover.
Huh.
Yeah, DC has renamed their Injustice He-Man crossover to Injustice versus the Masters of the Universe.
I thought that they were doing that just to simplify things and bring it back to the original labeling of the product, which was simply Masters of the Universe.
No, actually, the original labeling of the product was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. The problem was that they did have a line of characters, and He-Man was very prominent in it, but there was an argument between the creators of the line and the company that put it out. I want to say it was Mattel. I can't remember what line of toys that was, but... that
was Mattel.
Yeah, basically the marketing execs wanted a name that they could give to the line, and then they tacked on the Masters of the Universe thing, which never sat well with the creators.
Yeah.
But either way, this is supposed to be a story where Batman of the Injustice universe is looking for a weapon to use against Superman, and then he comes across a universe of characters fueled by magic, which is one of the few things that most Supermen are extremely vulnerable to. So that's why this crossover is happening. And again, this is the Injustice comics, not DC's proper canon.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on with that.
It's written by Tim Seeley. The art and cover is going to be by Freddie Williams II.
No, it doesn't ring any bells.
Freddie Williams, he's actually done the Batman TMNT crossovers.
Oh, no wonder it didn't ring any bells.
Well, he's not using the same type of art, though. It's more or less standard comic-style art.
Okay. Not the steroid suit
Yeah,
from last week.
yeah. Robin is going to have some kind of new secret mentor going forward, according to another press release.
Let me guess, Shiva.
They're not saying, actually. Adam Glass is going to be the writer. Bernard Chang will be the artist on the new Teen Titans series going forward with issue 20. This is after the events of Justice League No Justice begin to impact the title itself. The Teen Titans will have new blood, a new mission, and a new attitude. Familiar faces like Robin, Kid Flash, and Red Arrow are going to be joined by new characters called Jin, D-J-I-N-N, Roundhouse, and Crush, the illegitimate daughter of Lobo.
If I was going to wage my bets on Robin's secret mentor, I would think villain, because that's what happens when you have a secret mentor to Robin. So the short list is Shiva and Deathstroke, and I'm willing to bet money it's either one of them.
Actually, CBR.com has another contender that's more obvious than the others, really, if you put some thought into it.
What's that?
Robin's mother, Talia.
Oh, I thought she was dead. Oh, well, I guess it doesn't really matter.
Apparently not. As a matter of fact, Talia and Damien's grandfather, Ra's al Ghul, have recently visited Damien in the Prelude to the Wedding, Robin versus Ra's al Ghul one-shot. So, I don't know what to say beyond that. For some reason, when it comes to the Teen Titans, I'm almost more interested in the story of Lobo having an illegitimate daughter, but as soon as I say that, I lose interest.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Lobo. You're anachronism.
A story from last week, though, has a bit of an explanation with last week's Flash number 49.
The forces.
Yeah, remember we were reading solicitations that said that Barry Allen will be the strongest character in DC, or the mightiest one somehow, and none of us believed it. Because of issue number 49, Wally West, not Barry Allen, was tricked into running faster than ever before, and we found out a few things. One, Wally West is legitimately faster than Barry Allen. Barry could not keep up with him. But Wally somehow tore through the Speed Force and accidentally ran through a couple other previously unnamed forces in DC Comics.
The Sage Force and the Strength Force.
Yes. And now that he's broken through, some of these new forces are now running free, and Hunter Zolomon, I think it was, is
Zoom.
Yeah, Zoom, the villain Zoom, is channeling them all, and he's now calling himself the one true Flash, the fastest man alive.
Well, I mean, he's not wrong.
Well,
he is a self-styled hero because that's what he's trying to do in his own mind is heroic.
The thing is, though, it's one of those mechanics that I often criticize in DC for being way too simplified. Joanna, it really got kind of cheesy in my opinion, because breaking into the Sage Force allows the users of it to have more or less mind powers, telepathy, telekinetics, things like that.
Yeah, that seems beyond the realm of feasible, even for Flash.
Right, and then the Strength Force is exactly what it sounds like. It unlocks more of the potential of the body and adds super strength. I guess the new theory is characters who have particular types of powers, instead of tapping into the Speed Force, are tapping into one of these other things that now Zolomon has free access to all of them.
What could go wrong?
But it just seems like a little too easy of a thing. My problem isn't necessarily that Zolomon has the abilities, but now that they've defined these different forces, that means it's going to be the focus of a lot of different characters to tap into or even crack into these different forces that now oversimplify the origins of a lot of characters.
Mm-hmm.
That's my concern.
That's a good concern.
Casey, you got anything else there? Because I feel like I may have just stepped on you.
No. I mean, I was done when I said that Hunter Zolomon, in his own twisted mind, thinks he's the hero, and that's what he's always been about, is making the hero. He was, when DC made him, he was essentially the Reverse Flash for Wally.
Right.
So he's always been tied to Wally and making Wally the perfect hero and all this other stuff. So, I mean, I guess in his mind, Wally needs to have his family back or something along those lines. I think there's a level of deception on that one.
Yeah, he dangled the carrot of breaking through the Speed Force will supposedly give him access to bring his family out of it, but it turns out breaking through the Speed Force just allowed him to break through these other forces and give Zolomon access to it.
Yeah, but I don't think he's let go of his original goal. The whole reason he became Zoom is to make Wally a better hero. So I still think that the end result of this whole thing is going to have that flavor in it.
The sad part is that suddenly recategorizes Zoom to me as the Flash's Joker, because that's almost the reason why the Joker exists in the current writing of DC Comics, just to make
that's
Batman
exactly
a more
the
badass
position for
hero.
him.
So,
Yeah,
you know, I don't
you're
know.
not wrong.
I don't know. It may seem like I'm nitpicking or trying to hate. I'm not trying to hate. It's just these are reasons why I don't read DC Comics on the regular. Sometimes characters are oversimplified. Sometimes they're really complicated, and other times it just feels like they don't act like people.
That's a good assessment.
Yeah.
Like Superman, I'm just saying.
Okay, I have a list of problems with Superman, but that would take way too long, and it should be a whole episode. Last up in DC comic news, unfortunately, the Justice League title I want to read has been delayed for almost 2 months.
Is that Justice League Odyssey?
It is. This is the
What's
one.
What's up with that?
I don't know. The first issue has been delayed from July 11th, which means it was supposed to come out in about a week and a half here, to August 29th. Justice League Odyssey number 2 has been postponed from August 8th to September 26th. So I can't imagine it's too long before we're going to learn that the rest of these issues are going to be delayed. Simply because Justice League Odyssey number 3, it would mean that Justice League Odyssey number 3 would come out before 2, because it comes out September 12th, whereas 2 now comes out September 26th.
Well, the buzz I've been reading on that, I mean, the headline it was giving it was Justice League, 2 issues of Justice League Odyssey have been deleted or have been removed.
They haven't been either. It turns out there's some kind of, according to the artist on the series, Stepan Sejic, whose art I adore. I just fracking adore. He put out on Twitter I think the afternoon after this announcement, quote, "There was a bit of a miscommunication between production lines, and 2 already completed issues had to be scrapped. These things happen when you're dealing with such large machinery. Back to the old drawing board," unquote.
That was the terminology I saw. When I see scrapped, I think canceled. I think canceled, I think gone.
Yeah, and I don't quite know what that means. I worked on a printing press for a while, an industrial printing press, and it shouldn't take more than a week, if it's just a problem of a production error of some sort, to have the issues you need. So there should have been enough time, if this was just a production problem, to still have the books available, maybe just delayed a week. This seems to be more endemic of a problem, and of another problem, I should say. And Sejic said back to the drawing board. It sounds like something needs to be remade as far as the artwork.
It sounds like something just got flat out, destroyed.
Yeah. I mean, it almost sounds like the originals he made are gone somehow.
Yeah, that's what I'm gathering from this.
But at the same time, though, Joshua Williamson is still the writer. Stepan Sejic is still the artist, and now they're just soliciting these issues for August and September instead of their original release dates in July and August.
And this is the team that Starfire was in, right?
Yes, this is the team led by Cyborg. It has Starfire, Jessica Cruz, Azrael in new armor, and the new Darkseid.
That's right.
And their base is one of Brainiac's abandoned skull ships, which I guess technically is all of them now.
Yeah.
I do want to read that series. I'm extremely curious, not just because of the art, but because this is such an unusual group of Justice Leaguers. Literally 3/5 of them have never been in the Justice League before, and then you have Darkseid working with them in some sort of capacity. And I don't really care in what sort of capacity. Just the fact that he's on that team means I want to read this book.
Or that they're in dire straits to get his help.
Yeah, exactly.
You were saying?
No, I was agreeing.
Okay. Last up is general comic and convention news. This is where we talk about comic books that are not Marvel or DC related, as well as conventions happening all around the world. It turns out that although Marvel Studios has no presentation at Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con this year, Marvel Games will have a presentation. It's scheduled for Thursday, July 19th from 1 to 2 p.m. in Hall H. And when I say Marvel Games, there is not a dedicated Marvel Game Studios. This is a number of studios gathering together to give up information on their games. This includes Sony Interactive Entertainment, Insomniac Games, Oculus Studios, Nexon, Foxnet Games, and more.
So we're going to see more PlayStation 4 Spider-Man.
As a matter of fact, Insomniac said they're going to have new footage and some kind of new exclusive content to be revealed in Hall H.
I want to see costumes.
I
want to see alternate costumes.
Well, part of the pre-order for the Spider-Man PS4 game says you're supposed to get a pack of 3 costumes that aren't available to the general public, and the third one hasn't been announced yet.
What are the other 2?
Spider-Man, Spider-Punk, I believe.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. Second one?
The Iron Spider suit from the MCU.
Oh, that's
cool
right.
one.
I was underwhelmed by that, but
I took it as it was. Also, there will be a new debut of footage from Powers United. This is the VR game on Oculus for Marvel, where you get to take control of different characters and use their powers actively. It was just recently announced that Black Panther is part of the roster of this game, in addition to the Hulk, Captain Marvel, and Rocket Raccoon. Other games that will be presented during the panel include Marvel's Battle Lines, Marvel Strike Force, and Contest of Champions.
Contest of Champions is still on?
Yeah.
Damn.
I actually want to go to that panel, not just for the Insomniac. Marvel Puzzle Quest is also in that panel. I play that pretty actively.
There is actually some really cool costume art in some of those games. They even use storylines and characters that weren't even in the storylines they originated from. I think I saw an old Contest of Champions that had a Spider-Woman suit from... Oh, God. You know that storyline where a whole bunch of Marvel characters get like Thor-level Uru enhancements and stuff like that?
Do you mean the Thor's series, or the Thor's miniseries from Secret Wars?
The one where like Red She-Hulk had that gigantic sword and Iron Man had an Uru set of armor.
Yeah,
yeah.
It was like just post-Siege. Or was it pre-Siege? I think it was just pre-Siege. I do remember what you're talking about. It may have been the Siege event itself where they were looking for the anti-hammers.
Yeah. Oh, it was Original Sin.
Was it?
It was Original Sin.
No, that was the Watcher event.
It was about the serpent, the god of fear.
Yeah, it had a particular name. I'm pretty sure it wasn't Original Sin.
Oh, no, it was Fear itself.
That's it.
Fear itself. Well, I saw art of Spider-Woman as if she was involved in that storyline, wearing like an Uru-influenced Spider-Woman costume.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, that's cool as hell. And I knew she wasn't involved in that at all. So I've been looking around, and I found a lot of Marvel games do things like that involving costumes for characters that never existed. So it's fun.
Okay. Well, Reed Pop and DC are putting together a lineup for Philadelphia's Keystone Comic-Con. They've announced that Kevin Conroy will be there. He's going to be joining other DC talents, from September 14th through 16th at Philadelphia's Pennsylvania Convention Center. This is actually the very first Keystone Comic-Con upcoming. Frank Miller will be there as well. Greg Capullo, James Tynion IV, they're all confirmed to be in Artist Alley for the 3-day convention. And John Boy Myers helped design an original poster for Keystone. John Boy Myers, he's the character designer on more recent volumes of, I think, the Teen Titans. I would actually like to visit that. Those are some pretty good creators overall, just from DC.
I wish I knew more about those particular creators. I unfortunately do not.
James Tynion IV, he's like a transformative writer, really. He's worked on Detective Comics, the Batman Team one that had Batwoman in charge. He also worked on Justice League No Justice and Justice League Dark.
Oh, okay. Well, shit, I guess I have read his stuff. I need to pay more attention.
Okay. Does anybody read the My Hero Academia manga?
I do not read the manga.
Okay.
I do watch the series.
Okay, well, it turns out the spin-off Vigilantes is including a couple side characters that have been becoming increasingly more involved in the My Hero Academia storyline. Casey, do you know the characters of Ichimoku Samatsu and Jubei Namimaru?
Not by those names. Do you know their hero names?
Not really. And I'm not sure.
Students?
No, actually, they are quirk-using characters, but I don't think they're registered heroes. The thing is, Ichimoku has a quirk that gives him eye beams, and he uses a particular visor that apes another character. Meanwhile, Jubei Namimaru has a quirk of extending wooden swords from his wrists.
No, I don't. I've never heard of those characters at all.
Okay, the reason why I bring them up is because they've originally appeared in the central My Hero Academia series, and the reason why they're popular is because the two characters are rather obvious clones and parodies of Cyclops and Wolverine.
Yeah.
I sent you guys an image from the recent Vigilante spin-off, so you could take a look.
Oh my God! It even looks like the Phoenix Cyclops.
Yeah. Yeah, as a matter of fact, the writer of the series, Hideyuki Furuhashi, he said recently, quote, "At first I was just going to use them for the start of Chapter 3, thinking I'll barely get away with this level of parody, so just this time. But then they kept showing up in Chapters 4 and 5. So my editor said, these guys again, huh? They'll probably end up as regulars in the bonus pages of the volumes. I like them because they're just so easy to employ, however I want," unquote.
Well, okay, the Wolverine clone has sideburns down to his chin. He has an X on his hat. His hat is pointed on either end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, one of the artists on the series, Betancourt, he admitted to the likenesses of the characters and the fact that Namimaru keeps getting closer and closer to Wolverine as they go along. The exact quote was, quote, "Furuhashi instructed me to make them look like delinquents. Samatsu's visor was inspired by a certain Marvel superhero. Namimaru, whose name comes from a certain group, just gets rounder and rounder the more I draw him." Unquote.
Yeah, I mean, that's clearly Phoenix Cyclops' visor there.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the more they just kind of do this parody, the more popular they get, so the more they appear, especially as comic relief or storytelling, not storytelling, just kind of distractions and jokes.
I love this series so much, and I know it's because I'm being pandered to because it's a Western style hero story, but I really get a kick out of the fact that this anime even exists, even this manga exists.
I may have to give it a second shot. I watched a few episodes, but I bowed out only because I think I've watched too much anime. A lot of the story beats become very predictable after a while.
I hear you. I've stayed away from a lot of modern anime, and I only gravitated towards this because a lot more of my comic-minded friends were talking about it. So it became a buzzword I kept seeing here and there. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna find out where this is, and it's on Filmation's subscription service.
Yeah.
They have the simulcasted dubs of the episodes a week after they hit in Japan.
You want to know how long I've been watching anime? I started with the Shogun Warriors way back when. They were known as Robo, so if that tells you anything.
You got me beat.
Okay, yeah, it's fracking old. A comic book writer and sci-fi novelist unfortunately passed away recently. He was 84 years old. His name is Harlan Ellison.
Oh, yeah. City on the Edge of Forever, right?
I believe so. I'm sorry, I'm scanning through the story right now. He actually knew Len Wein pretty well. He was a friend of Len and his wife Susan.
Len Wein, is that the creator of Wolverine?
One of the co-creators of... No, actually, well, I don't remember if he was a co-creator. He worked on Giant Size X-Men #1. He was definitely one of the co-creators on Colossus, Storm, and Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
Ellison, the reason why I bring it up is not just because he was a novelist. He actually did comic book writing as well. He was known for some of the more iconic Daredevil moments.
He was an exceptionally skilled writer, very legendary, especially in the Star Trek rounds, but he was also well known for being very toxic.
Yeah, and he did work on The City of the Edge of Forever. He wrote the original script, but it was said that he didn't like how it turned out because it was heavily rewritten at the time by Gene Roddenberry.
He also sued the makers of the Terminator enough to get his name into the credits of it, saying that it borrowed heavily from something that he wrote previously.
I don't know, and he was rather difficult to work with. He was hired to write for Walt Disney Studios. He was fired on his first day after being overheard joking about making an animated porno starring Disney characters.
And it was not unheard of him for him to attack coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, he was a very talented man, probably too eccentric for his own good.
Yeah, but he had a healthy, long life, and I'm sure he'll be remembered for his,
He'll be remembered
Virtues?
for his writing, and the stories about his behavior will change from stories of "oh my god" to fond remembrances of a man gone, I'm sure.
Yeah, an eccentric.
Yep. Let me see. Boom Studios has announced that they're rolling out Legacy Editions. They're collected editions of some of their adaptations of pop culture into comic books. The first softcover collection will arrive in late 2018, beginning with a top secret unannounced series, then continue into 2019 with their franchises based on Sons of Anarchy and Big Trouble in Little China.
I've actually got something to add to this.
Okay.
Recently, Boom Studios also got the acquisition of Firefly from Joss Whedon.
Yep.
And they'll be focusing on the war that Captain Mal and Zoe met.
Yeah, it
Cool.
was during the Independence War. Is that what it was called?
Unification.
Unification.
Unification, the War of Unification.
Well,
I
Boom.
might be a little bit of a fan.
Yeah.
Writer Greg Pak and artist Dan McDade are working on the new series.
Well,
Okay.
it doesn't say how much these legacy editions are going to be, but they've got to be more than your average trade. What I see here is Book 1 of Sons of Anarchy will collect issues 1 through 14, Book 2, issues 15 through 25, and Book 3 of, I guess, a side story, Sons of Anarchy Redwood Original, issues 1 through 12.
I have the first trade paperback for it, which was it was a hardback, I should say, and it was made to look like Tanner's. Damn it, the father of the main character, the one that died. It was made to look like his journal.
Was it
So it was
Thomas?
all. Start with a T.
I think it was
I feel
Thomas.
bad that I can't remember it.
I think it was... no. The last name was Teller. I remember that.
Teller, yes, you're right. And it was made to look like a very worn journal. It's got like a coffee mug stain on it, and it's all like looks a black leather kind of look.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really cool looking book.
Okay. Last up in general comic and convention news, Frontier Media has released a demographic map showing the most popular superheroine by state.
Okay, I've got to hear this.
Okay, I mean, I don't want to go through all 50 because that may take a while, but there's a number of rather noticeable characters, or notable, I should say, that are apparently the most popular by state. I don't know how those are broken down. You'll have to go to their website, Frontier Media, to figure that out. But they apparently use Google Analytics and social media stats to map out which superheroine, again, female superhero, is the most popular in a particular state. Any regions you want to hear about?
Texas.
Texas. Most popular superhero in Texas, the Black Canary.
Yeah, I thought that was
Really?
weird. Louisiana, it's the Huntress.
No.
I would have thought Rogue.
Actually, it was neither. According to the website, it's Supergirl.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting my purple shades mixed
Boo.
up.
Well, that's why I went to the list that they released under it, because the colors on their map are a little bit ambiguous. It's kind of hard to read.
Yeah. So where was Huntress? Is that Colorado?
Well, hang on. Let me use a search function here. Huntress turned out to be the most popular in Rhode Island.
That's sad.
That's weird.
It's a little bit bizarre. Well, in my own state of California, this may have to do with the Hollywood influence, but it's Wonder Woman.
How about
Yeah.
Ohio?
Ohio. That's Supergirl.
I was gonna say either her or Captain Marvel.
Did
I can
Captain
see
Utah?
Ohio.
That's kind of funny. Now that you mentioned Captain Marvel, I'm curious if she ended up anywhere on this list.
I don't think she did. Because
Even
I've
after
seen
the
that.
teasers.
No,
Really?
Yeah, Captain Marvel didn't end up as the most popular superheroine in any state.
You know what? That's an excellent segue, Joanna. I'm glad you did this because recently Samuel Jackson tweeted a shirt that he got from the Captain Marvel visual effects department.
Yeah, I
that
consider
showcases-
that rumor until somebody from the studio actually says something. Because
I
it-
saw
what's
the picture.
the rumor?
well, no, it's a
Well-
it's a picture of a shirt from the visual effects that shows Captain Marvel using her cowl that she hasn't used since the beginning of her solo series. But the reason why I consider that rumor, though, is because that was an art print. It didn't really look like it was anything produced by the special effects themselves. So
We'll find out when the movie comes out.
yeah, I mean, that's why I put it in the realm of rumor, because it's not like an actual picture of anything we've seen used so far.
Yeah. Like the rumor of Wonder Woman having her invisible jet.
Yes.
Oh God, I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw a clip of on set. I'm a little concerned. I know that was kind of the cheesier point of her story. I'm just hoping that they can make it work for Gal.
Yeah. Actually, Raven.
Well,
I was getting back to the list. Raven turned out to be the most popular character in Mississippi.
I'm
Interesting. I wonder
surprised you even know
why.
who she is.
Tell me about it. Montana is almost stereotypical. It's hot girl.
Yeah, that makes
That's
sense.
funny. Yeah.
What about Power Girl? Where's my Power Girl?
Power Girl is actually mentioned in 3 different states here. Actually 4: Indiana, Kansas,
Kansas.
Nebraska. Man, they like to grow them big out there in the Midwest.
I was
The
gonna
bread
say
basket
Midwest
likes
girl. Yeah.
And
Power Girl.
and going along with this theme, Wisconsin.
She likes cheese.
Or maybe she's getting milked.
I don't like that. That took a dark turn.
No.
She-Hulk is actually popular in the South, South Carolina and Missouri.
Strong, rebellious woman. I can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wyoming has the Scarlet Witch.
Hmm.
I wouldn't have quite pictured that.
Me either.
These sound rather dubious.
Are we talking cinematic universe or comic books? Because
It doesn't delineate.
I
It's again
wonder.
based on Google Analytics and social media stats.
it's not a real.
It's not like a poll.
Oh.
These are
See-
literally the most talked about, and I guess you could say the most talked about superheroines.
Yeah.
Jean
Hence.
Grey. Jean Grey is the most talked about in Alaska and Florida.
How about New York and California?
California was Wonder Woman. New York is
Mhm.
Jessica Jones.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah, that's not a surprise.
Actually, Jones was also very popular in Michigan.
I am sad that Captain Marvel is not included in this.
Well, these stats may change after March.
Because people don't know about her until after the movie.
Yeah,
That also sounds like complete bullshit.
it's not that they don't know about her, but do enough casual people know about her?
Yeah, that's what I meant. The casual people don't know about them until they're in a movie. Then
Mhm.
they suddenly are experts on just the movie version and not the actual comic book version. Drives me nuts.
There is an
Like all the-
I was going to say there's an aberration to that rule, though. The most
Which
popular
one?
superhero currently in Nevada is Zatanna.
Huh.
Okay.
Oklahoma, too. Weird.
Is it because she's a magician?
I do not know.
Like essentially Nevada? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm
I've
thinking,
been
like,
to
where's the Las Vegas connection?
Yeah, I've been to Vegas a number of times in the last couple of years, and I don't know why anybody out there does anything really. But that's
I'm saying she's a magician and they have like stage magicians. Maybe there's a connection. I don't know.
then I don't get why she's the most popular in Oklahoma as well.
Now I've got, of course, the stage production of Oklahoma playing in my head.
On that note, the subject of this week is Batman and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Volume 2. This was the second 6 issues of a crossover between DC and IDW Comics. The creative team remained pretty well unchanged from the first volume. The writer is James Tynion the fourth, the art is by Freddie Williams the second, colors by Jeremy Caldwell, and the letters by Tom Napolitano. And I will say that the second volume I don't think was as good as the first.
I have to
Bad.
agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it was entertaining in its own way. It tied itself up a little too quickly, I think, in the third act. And, they found a reason for the characters to coexist, but I don't know. It almost felt like something where they had to pad out No, actually, they didn't have to pad out the last couple issues. They just kind of had to draw it together a little too quickly, it felt like.
It did
Maybe
feel
this
rushed.
is maybe this is a good example of a series being far too long, and then losing a lot of its novelty.
Well, it wasn't that it was far too long. The last couple issues actually tied up too fast. They really went directly from confrontation into a very quick ending. It was my problem.
Yeah,
How
I
many
find-
issues do we have?
6. Same as last time.
I find that DC has a problem pacing their storylines.
Mhm.
Most of the time in the comic books, it's okay because they know like how many issues they're going to have. But in the cinematic universe, they seem to rush everything. It just kind of reflects here.
Well, the cinematic problems are a whole different kettle of fish.
It's true, but it seems to be a trend with DC works.
But whereas the first one had a good mechanic about the time frame needed to get the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles back to their home universe, this second volume didn't have that mechanic, so it turned into more of a standard heroes versus villains affair. That may have been one of the issues I had with it. Bane as a villain, very fitting because they didn't allow him to play in his usual playground. He came to the New York of the Turtles, which he isn't necessarily an aberration, but he thinks very differently from most of their villains, who, for the most part, don't think. The Shredder is kind of the only mastermind they really deal with, and Bane has a different level when it comes to all that. Tynian's writing of Bane, though, I thought was a little bit weak. Bane enjoyed soliloquies in this miniseries.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he always did kind of chew up the scenery a bit.
Oh, it felt excessive, though. It feels like one of those guys who finally got a thesaurus into his hand somehow, and he's overusing it. He's one of those characters that was using 5 when 2 would have done. Something like that.
Maybe it's to counterbalance the fact that he usually doesn't speak much when he was just the minion and not an actual main villain.
All of a sudden, I'm thinking of Joel Schumacher again.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't get that
You've
reference, I
only
don't
spent
blame you.
a few years writing professionally, whilst I was born of the encyclopedia.
God, I almost pine for the days when he would just scream turtles over and over. I don't know. The first 10 pages or so had to deal with the Turtles and their current situation with a split among the Foot Clan. I was almost surprised when they suddenly, without too much exposition, flipped into Gotham City. It almost wasn't very well defined. It seemed like Batman had been in their universe for a while, but after he appeared was when they finally let you know, you're in the DC realm here. And I gotta say, I was almost appreciative when he showed up just because I had gotten used to his ridiculous walking muscle facade in these miniseries.
Oh, God, the muscle suit.
Yeah, when he showed up as over-ripped Batman, I was kind of relieved and laughed more than I should have.
Oh, I wish they had actually addressed that. I wish there was like some level of self-awareness to the fact, oh, hey, I just came in a muscle suit.
I would say that the crux of this second 6 issues really had to do with the perception of power. What Bane considered power, what Batman considered power, and Donatello dealing with his perceived weakness as the smartest but least capable fighter among his brothers.
Poor Donatello. He's actually my favorite.
Yeah, they did write him a good arc, and he was one of the characters I would say was one of the most underutilized in the first volume. And Bane being a villain with Donatello in a starring role in this capacity is almost fitting because it's almost a literal matchup between brain and bronze there.
True.
But if you thought Batman was over-muscled, oh my god, their version of Bane. I imagine
his muscles had muscles.
Dude, I think he's constipated 24/7 because there's no way he can open a sphincter large enough to get anything out of there.
Well, he has a liquid diet, doesn't he?
I don't know. It's not like he ever really takes off his mask to eat in any story he's written in. I don't recall
Am I the only person that's actually seen all of the anime for My Hero Academia?
Yes.
Probably.
Okay. There is a character that's fighting the main character, and basically he creates muscle tissue, and he just keeps overdoing it and overdoing it and overdoing it, and he just becomes this big, massive, round muscle thing.
Canada! No.
Exactly. That's what it kind of felt like. He's like, man, he's gonna rupture at some point. But that's kind of what I thought of when I saw this.
I mean, Bane is intimidating. He's intimidating in this series, but as Casey pointed out in the prior one, a lot of the Turtles characters, especially in their home universe, are already big, brawny individuals. And Bane, he should be more intimidating and probably larger than them. The problem is the scale, I think. Because Bane didn't just look like he was muscled. It looked like he looked like he was wearing a size 32 boot, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should have known what we were getting into when we saw the first issue of this.
Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy it. It just wasn't as good as the prior. I don't know if it's because I'd gotten used to the story writing style of this crossover, or if there was something really missing from the second. It just didn't feel like it gelled as well as the first time. I was
Right.
grateful to see more interaction with the Bat family. I mean, they included Batgirl and Nightwing in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Although William's style in this one, the painted style, didn't work as well for Batman supporting cast. I don't know what happened to Barbara. She looked sleepy, narcoleptic.
That sounds like a guy. I'm gonna go with that description.
And I don't know. Nightwing, he had the right proportions, but he also looked like he was posing for his next mannequin. I don't know if they were playing up the Bashojo aspect of the character, but there was just way too many times where it looked like he was there not necessarily to fight, but to look really pretty.
That's fair.
I would say the characterization of Bane was good. I think his dialogue went too long.
Yeah.
That might have been influenced by the Dark Knight series.
Well, I mean, Tynion's a longtime DC writer. Okay, I guess Bane's trying out his motorcycle outside my window here. But,
Yep, he's shown up. He doesn't like your assessment.
great. Tynion is a longtime DC writer, and he's usually very tight when it comes to exposition and dialogue. It almost feels like he was let a little too far off his chain in this miniseries. There are times characters way over-explain themselves in this mini.
Yeah, and I don't like when the villain does a soliloquy or monologue, depending on the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's reminiscent of like black and white silent films where the guy's just like, "Nyeh, nyeh, nyeh,"
Yeah.
twisting his mustache and about to put the damsel in distress in more danger.
Mm-hmm.
Or
So-
as the Incredibles goes, "You got me monologuing."
Yeah.
Yeah, but Bane never seems to be the type to actually say, hey, I've talked too long. It almost seems like he's trying to tell people, shut up, I'm not done yet.
I have a
this
brain.
is this is definitely not the Bane from Secret Six. The Secret Six Bane was not a talkative fellow.
No, he wasn't monolingual either. He was more or less to the point.
Yeah, very to the point. He made his intentions very clear, but if he had nothing to say, he didn't say it.
Yeah, actually, I guess that pretty much nails what my problem is between the two series. In the first miniseries, Tynion was its biggest strength. He wrote a really tight script, and his characters were very well defined, even though a lot of them had limited page time. The second mini, it just seemed like he was a little too out of control. Certain characters really overpowered the mini. And I guess that would be Raphael, Robin, and Bane for the most part. They really dominated the page count in this miniseries, which is a little bit sad because the thread he came up with of Bane getting Baxter Stockman to mass produce a new strain of venom and then give it to his co-opted soldiers of the Foot Clan as well as Bebop and Rocksteady is a legitimately scary mechanic.
Also, total supervillainy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then he decided to get a little too Bond villain when he's telling an entire city of New York, look, I haven't taken over, but I can rescue you. Come join my army and I will give you venom. All he needed would be a blue helmet and costume and suddenly he's Cobra Commander.
The more we talk about this and review the details of it, the more it really feels like this guy watched Dark Knight Rising.
It may be that Tynion unfortunately was influenced by that and may not have realized it. That could have occurred here.
Yeah.
I would say the best part of the mini, and it's going to sound cruel, was when Splinter was injured. And that's not because I really enjoy, killing rats or gore. It was just the story of them needing to rush to get him to the DC universe and drop him in a Lazarus pit was compelling, but it was given so few pages it never really developed.
That's funny, considering that they had 12 full issues of this nightmare. I mean this comic book.
I'm sorry, did you say something? I could have sworn you said something.
Oh, no, of
Tell
course
us
not.
how you really feel.
No,
I'm not a fan of this. As you well know,
well,
I read this under duress.
I only say that because that could have been a series of actually really good storytelling moments, especially since, Splinter is an outsider as far as the DC universe, and the Lazarus Pits are typically something that, while extremely helpful, also tend to take characters in very bizarre directions. And not only did they gloss over the outcome of that, they really just kind of told what happened in 2 or 3 panels, and then it was never mentioned again.
Sloppy writing.
That's kind of unfortunate. Um,
Did this book have the same writer throughout all 12 issues, or was there a co-writer on it?
no, it was the same writer in both miniseries, but somehow the second one felt very rushed compared to the first. And I don't quite know why that is.
Probably deadlines. I don't know.
I almost feel like Tynion had a really big idea for a follow-up to the first miniseries, but then he got a little too mired in his own storytelling. Which sometimes happens. Sometimes follow-up to really good one-and-done stories turn out to be a bit much just because you never really intended to continue it, but now that you got the chance, you overdid it. And I feel like that's what happened here. Because a lot of the things that made the first one kitschy and enjoyable were almost ignored in this one.
Only might have lost focus with all these issues. I mean, it feels to me like editorial probably pushed on him.
They may have. It doesn't feel like the same writer, and that's bizarre.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that can happen, especially if you're dragging behind, or, be honest, if a writer's being forced to do a book that they're not really thrilled with.
Yeah, that comes across in the pages.
Yeah. And the other unfortunate thing is that the story of Donatello and his desperation so profound that he actually got some of the Venom gear off of some of the Foot Clan and injected himself with it.
Yeah.
This could have been a really big character moment, but it was pretty much over in half an issue. Which, if you know comic books, that's about 11 pages.
Yeah, it sounds like it was just a filler.
Low key.
Oh, okay. I thought you were about to yell a point, and you're just yelling at your cat again.
Yeah, he just knocked some stuff over. Sorry.
It's okay. I guess, you know what? That actually, I think, really keys into my problems here. It was rushed, and it's one of those things where it's another problem I have with DC Comics, wherein they have an event, and the effects and the fallout of the mini are so temporary as far as what it does to the characters, I don't really care. It's like the first one, I understand, it was just a one and done. I didn't really expect it to do anything. If you're going to tell an ongoing story, it should affect the characters in some way, and by the end of it, everybody pretty much ended up in the exact same place they were in anyway.
So, yeah, ineffectual.
Yeah.
No status quo changes, but then, of course, that's the norm for a crossover involving two different companies. But yeah, you're right. Obviously, the product of somebody who just lost interest in what they were doing halfway through their project.
You know, and I'm going to agree with the editorial comment earlier. It's probably a case where the first crossover printed such large amounts of money they weren't expecting. They thought, yeah, we can do this again. Then it turned out you probably shouldn't have done it again.
No.
You know, if you got success the first time, doesn't mean everything's going to be great. Ask Marvel in Civil War 2.
Oh, god damn Civil War 2.
Hey, I'm a Marvel fan. I can admit when things go off the rails. That was one of those cases, and unfortunately, the second volume here is one of those things. They tried to introduce too many additional characters too quickly, and the story just kind of fell under its own weight.
Yeah. Well, as far as storyline goes, there's a formula of sorts for hero stories where usually the mentor has to die or go away for some reason or something happens to them to separate the mentor from the student so that the student can stand on their own 2 feet. I mean, think about Star Wars. Where I thought they were going to get into kind of that character development when Master Splinter dies.
Right.
But they took the cheap way out and brought him back. And that, to me, ruined the potential for a lot of character development with not just Donatello, but also the rest of the Turtles, the rest of the team. You know, I feel like I understand that they're teenagers and they need guidance, but sometimes you've got to let the heroes stand on their own 2 feet and be heroes.
Yeah.
And that's why in most of the hero myths and in good storytelling, the mentors removed somehow.
Yeah. I agree with that. There was way too many moments in the last 2 issues, particularly in Volume 2, that could have developed into large amounts of character growth, even within the confines of the mini, that were just really glossed over. You know, Donatello using Venom on himself, hey, same issue. Hey, I've got gas. I can undo it. That's great. Splinter coming out of the Lazarus pit, instead of coming out crazy, he came out zen. And then the last issue, you know, Batman shows everybody that he's brought Shredder to fight Bane, but they never really dealt with the mechanics of how he came out, let alone they talked about how he voluntarily went back to jail in one panel, in one bubble.
Right.
I mean, just the negotiation between the two characters, it felt like could have lasted half a comic and been entertaining, but they really did nothing with it.
Yeah,
It
and
was like a... Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I feel like they just had so much potential, and then they forgot that segue, or they forgot that particular point that they could run with. Maybe they were told to, hey, wrap it up in X amount of issues, but yeah, the second half just felt rushed and ill-conceived, in my opinion.
Actually, there's one picture I think can exemplify what was wrong with the second mini. The 6th issue. The big assault on Bane's fortress on Staten Island, or Liberty Island, I should say. And some of the characters that hadn't been used a lot up until this point in the issue was Raphael, Michelangelo, and Leonardo, and then Nightwing, Batgirl, and Robin. And when they show up in the fight, they don't show up and fight in their typical forms. They all have non-lethal blaster weaponry of some sort. That's about where that in one image, I think, exemplifies what happened. You have characters that you can use in very, very interesting and new ways, and instead you just kind of fall back on the cheapest storylines possible somehow.
Yeah.
So are we ready to review this?
I think so. Casey, you go first.
Well, wasn't a big fan of the other one. But, I mean, it definitely knew its audience. And I've said that, you know, there's merit in knowing your audience. The second one, he still knew his audience, he just didn't really give a crap about it. So I'm going to give it a 5.
Okay, Joanna, what have you got here?
Well, the first half I liked more. And I think we ranked the first half last time.
Yes, we did.
So this ranking is going to be for the second half. I would have to give it a 5 as well. Like, whereas the art was still good, the action was substantial, the story just, it lacked. And it didn't seize potential. And I just find that, you know, it's lazy writing. It's unfortunate.
Okay. I think I'm going to be a little different from you guys on this one, because you both scored it 5 for this particular volume so far. My problem was the art was consistent throughout for the most part. This particular style doesn't lend itself well to its human characters, which is, you know, what can you do? Most of the cast in this one is inhuman. The problem I have, though, is that the second volume set itself up really well in the first half, but in the second half, it ran to a finish without any gas. You know, no character was used well from its stars to its supporting cast, so I'm actually going to give it a 4. It was a big setup that worked well, but unfortunately when they started trying to resolve storylines, it stopped really working.
So I guess it's safe to say that we really didn't like this.
Not the second half. The first 6 issues, the first volume was really strong. The second one, it was the equivalent of a cinematic cash grab, in my opinion.
Yep, it was a harbinger of mediocrity.
Yeah. The next storyline we're going to read was already determined. It's going to be the first 6 issues of the Punisher War Machine storyline. So
good old Punisher is gifted by Nick Fury with a suit of shield armor. Not necessarily the War Machine armor per se, but definitely one of the models that it's based on.
Yeah, you going to stop crying now?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please come back next week. Hopefully we'll have the DVR reset by then. Have a great one and enjoy your July 4th. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
Casey.
Happy Canada Day. Enjoy, everybody.